I'm going to show you a little bit of last night's, or yeah, I guess part of it was last night. There was a meeting yesterday in Panama City, a city commission meeting, and it went for 6.5 hours. It began at 1 o'clock, and I think it ended after 7 p.m. The meeting went for over 6 hours. And a part of the reason these meetings go so long is because of the charade, because of the play, because of all of the theater that takes place, where you have commissioners in Panama City who are doing insane things, who don't give a flip about their residents or their constituents. See, the way it works is you have 4 commissioners, and they each represent a certain ward. And then you have the mayor, who represents all of the people of Panama City. And but right now, you've got all of a sudden, you've got a commissioner, Josh Street, the Grand Inquisitor. He wants now, his main concern now is not to make sure that they're doing all they can to mitigate the raw sewage that pollutes the environment in the community and the parks and the neighborhoods and the roads. Millions of gallons. The doo-doo alerts continue on. But especially Josh Street, the commissioner. This guy now, not a whole lot of concern about the fire hydrants that don't work or the potholes in the road. No, now his main concern, he says, is to increase voter turnout. He wants to make sure that in municipal elections in Panama City, that more people cast a vote. He cares about our democracy, Josh Street. The guy who goes to lunch all the time with dumpster diver Arthur Cullen, the campaign manager, and the state representative Griff Griffiths, as they plot and scheme the next way to hose you, to screw you over, the residents of Panama City, to please the big developers, particularly the St. Joe Company and their former lobbyist, William Harrison, the local kingmaker, who has all of these guys. When Josh Street moves his mouth, if you look closely over in the audience, you'll often see a row of attorneys, and the lead guy is William Harrison. And I think when Josh is moving his mouth, if you look closely, you'll see William Harrison's pulling the strings. And everybody's terrified of William Harrison, to include me. William Harrison, by the way, the kingmaker, is the campaign manager for the guy who can arrest you and for the guy who can prosecute you. He's the campaign manager for Sheriff Tommy Ford and for state attorney, district attorney, if that's what they call him, Larry Bassford. Terrifying. You might have 8 deputies surrounding your house if you're not careful with these guys. William Harrison makes a call, pulls some strings. But, for everybody to sit around and allow them to focus on the ridiculous and absurd while the town is being polluted by raw sewage and corruption. You get residents saying, we don't want something like the sidewalk path. Who benefits? What are they getting out of it? But now Josh Street, he's so concerned about saving our democracy, wants more people to be able to vote. Josh Street cares about, you ready for this? Black people. He cares about minorities. He wants more people to vote. Nobody believes you, Josh. This is an effort, and Mayor Rohan, wait till you see Mayor Rohan, looked him right in his face and calls him out. What Josh Street says that all of a sudden it just hit his conscience, and he did some research, and, he doesn't know. He just wants to maybe suggest that we can improve our democracy by moving the city. All municipalities in Bay County have their elections in April. But Josh wants to move it to November. He wants to make it part of the presidential election. Think about this. And do you know who's the main opponent of this? Just the guy who knows the most. He went up there and talked about it. You're going to see. Supervisor of Election Mark Anderson. He went up there and said, this is a terrible idea. Can you imagine living in Panama City and all your life, the municipal elections are in April, and you go to one place, to cast your votes. This time it was one place. It was City Hall. But, when you go cast your election, your ballot for president in November, it's often a different precinct. It's a different place. The wards don't match the precinct. It's a disastrous idea. It would cause mass confusion. But Josh Street says he just cares about democracy. See? God, this guy is he is as dishonest, Josh Street, the Grand Inquisitor, as Adrian Drama Queen Welly, as a former councilman in Panama City Beach, Jeff Angry Elf McConnell. He has very much the same personality traits, by the way, as the mayor in Lynn Haven. Jesse, Doctor of Leadership Nelson, very similar. They act like they're really smart, and they always have the little snarky comments, and I don't mean that. I apologize. I would never. Wearing their religions on their sleeves while they scheme with the worst people in Bay County to screw you over. Oh, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to show you some incredible footage from the meeting yesterday. And boy, did Mayor Doc Rohan ever lay into him.
Have you received a speeding ticket for which you want no points placed onto your driving record? I'm El Saulene, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. Let's get to the Panama City Commission meeting yesterday. Their inept and crooked puppet attorney, Nevin Zimmerman, is sitting down after an intermission, and he's going to read this proposal that they changed the municipal elections just in Panama City. That means the mayor, who was just elected, would have to start campaigning in the summer. Yeah, because the mayor serves 2-year terms. The rest of the commissioners serve 4-year terms. Mayor Doc Rohan is not there to represent the St. Joe Company and the big developers. He's there to represent the constituents. And that's unacceptable. Just like Mayor Michelle Miller in Mexico Beach, they upset incumbent puppets of the big developers, Al Cathy and Greg Brudnicki. And it is unacceptable. They cannot have them, the big developers. They cannot have these two as mayor, even if it's just for another year and a half, because they're both 2-year terms, Mexico Beach and Panama City. Because, see, these big developers in the St. Joe Company, they've got deadlines. They've got grant deadlines. They've got all these massive deadlines. They can't wait they can't honor an election. So Josh Street all of a sudden has this idea. Here's the city attorney explaining it, and then they're going to start talking about it.
It's a report on it's a report to consider a referendum to change municipal election dates. This is something that Commissioner Street, as I indicated in my letter.
This guy, by the way, their city attorney, he is with Burke and Blue. The city hires Burke and Blue. And Big Boy Mike, the main attorney at Burke and Blue, who runs this whole damn thing, he sends his inept attorney, because he's not going to do any good in the real world, old Nevin Zimmerman, you go over there and you run the meeting. You advise these people of all as much Bolshevik as you can. So Nevin Zimmerman, understand Burke and Blue represents the city.
Had talked to me about, and also others, as far as as a way to increase voter turnout.
Yeah, that's what they're concerned about.
Based upon the study that he had done, it would make sense to align municipal elections with the August primaries and the presidential or gubernatorial elections in November. So we looked at it, determined that this could be done by ordinance. And it could be done by ordinance.
No, it cannot be done by ordinance. This guy is, he is inept, okay? Nevin Zimmerman, the attorney, he is inept. That's for sure. But more than that, he's just dishonest as all get out. You cannot do it by ordinance. It has to be done by referendum. The city charter says that the city runs its elections. By moving it, it would cause the supervisor of elections, the judges, and others, it would turn over control of the municipal election. You can't do that, according to the city charter. Nevin Zimmerman is so unbelievably dishonest. He knows. He knows. But they're going to all, Josh Street's going to say, well, yeah, but I think it's the right thing to do to, even though we could do it, we're going to leave it up to the people. Okay. That's a lie. They cannot do it by ordinance. But they're going to show just how reasonable they are and not do it by ordinance. I want you to do it by ordinance. Please do it by ordinance so we can have that settled in court too.
But after talking with supervisor of elections, and then Commissioner Streets asked, well, could it be done also by referendum, by a vote of the people? And the answer was absolutely. It could be done in that direction also. So the challenge when you consider changing terms is the transition. And so the way that the ordinance is written is that there would be a transition term. There's no ordinance written, Nevin. You're not doing it by ordinance. I guess what he's saying is the proposed ordinance that the people would vote on. I guess that's what he's saying. Everyone that is elected for a 4-year term or a 2-year term would serve a 4-year term or a 2-year term. If this were done this year, then in August, there would be a primary for both the 2 commissioners that seats are up, as well as the mayor position. Then
Can you believe this?
Primary, the way it's done today, we always call our general election, we call it runoffs, because we do not have political, it's nonpartisan. There's not a Republican primary and a Democrat primary. It is a primary for all parties, or all candidates. If more than, and so it weeds it down to 2. If only 2 people run the way it is today, in April, we have what's called a nominating election. And if there are only 2 that qualify, or if there are 3, but 1 receives more than 50% of the vote, then there's no reason to go to the general election and you skip it. And so there's you just have the election in April, and then
if it would have been done that way, Greg Brudnicki would still be up there. But Doc Rohan defeated Greg Brudnicki in a runoff election. There's a lot of reasons they're doing this, and I'll start to share those with you over time. But let's continue on here.
No further election. The end of the term today is the end of April. If there is more than, if somebody does not receive 50% or more, then you go to a
Runoff.
what's called we call it the runoff, but it's really just the general election in May. What this proposes is that in August, if this were done, you would have the nominating election. If only 2 people qualified in August, then you would skip and have that in the general election in November. If there were 4 people running in August, then you would have the primary, and then the top, if nobody won 50%, then you would then go to the final 2 would go to November. So that's the way that this has been prepared. Also, that if the commissioners wanted to have it as a referendum, the earliest it could be done would be in April. We do not have an election in April, but other cities have elections in April, and that's why it's called the municipal elections. But every April, there are municipal elections. Ours would be next April. But if the commission wanted to vote on this or have a vote, then it would be in April of this year. It'd be the single issue that would be on the ballot. So that it's a report. It provides you with information about a couple of articles that
dishonest.
Well, Commissioner Street mentioned them, but we went and looked at some other information. Also, I know Mr. Hayes provided us with an email yesterday that talked about the percentage of votes at the municipal elections as compared to August and November.
This is their attorney.
For example, municipal primary, it's like 19%, and I'm really generalizing. August, it's around 30%, and November.
No wonder Big Boy Mike with Burke and Blue sends this guy. Who would want him in their own law firm?
So that's the difference as far as the number of city residents that come out and vote at general presidential and state elections as opposed to the April. Also, we received a letter yesterday, which I provided you by email from the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Anderson.
Yep.
And he just expressed some concerns about switching dates because when he was first...
I want you to listen to how dishonest. Mark Anderson didn't just express some concerns. Mark Anderson said, "Are you crazy?" If you don't believe me, he's about to go up and say it. You dishonest people. You know how much it pisses me off to see "In God We Trust" in front of these deceitful people?
First elected, or one reason is when he was first elected, he worked hard to get all the cities in sync together. But it is in sync in April, not in sync in August or November. And then he expressed different reasons why he preferred the elections to be the way that they were.
He doesn't prefer.
And he understood, of course, though, that this was a decision that the city would ultimately make, but he did want you to get his thoughts as you were going through that process.
He objects to it. Nevin, say it.
This is not a first reading necessarily at all, but it is an opportunity to talk about it, to see if there's any interest in talking about it further.
Come on, Commissioner Street.
I'll kick it off since I got us into this mess.
I want you to please listen to Commissioner Josh Street. Tell me if you believe him at all. First of all, this is absolutely not an issue for politicians, for these people. Their job is not to try to increase voter turnout. That's absurd. How about start slowing down the raw sewage leaks? Fix the potholes, you so-and-sos. But listen to Josh Street. Now, I'm going to tell you another tell. All right. I told you some tells about Mayor Mark Sheldon. Listen to Josh Street and to Nevin Zimmerman. When you hear them sort of change their inflection at the end, like this is something I just thought of, and I did a little research, that's a tell. When you hear somebody talking like that, and at the very end they want to say that they thought they were just that is also a tell. You are lying.
So, I understand. I mean, like, look, we're all successful products of running the elections the way that we have ran them, and so they, I mean, it's difficult for me to say whether or not they worked because obviously I'm sitting up here as with my fellow colleagues. This was kind of driven through questions about like how do we increase voter turnout, those kind of things, and it led to some research on my behalf.
Oh, sure.
I wanted to understand,
I want to understand.
How do we get so many people that show up for a presidential or a midterm election, but we don't get people to show up for a municipal election when it affects things that are close to home? And I think we understand that based upon, just our time in the role. Really the discussion now is whether or not we want to put it to the voters and to let them decide whether they want to move to the November election cycle or whether they want to keep it as it is now with municipal Tuesday. The advantages for the November election cycle is there's more early voting dates. There's a lot more polling places that may be closer to certain communities. There's certain
communities.
There's certain people are engaged at a different level. I personally believe that people should be engaged more in local politics than national politics. That's just my personal belief. But the reality is across the country that is not the case in American politics, so to speak. And so this is kind of the culmination of that, speaking with Mr. Anderson, and he had a lot of input into even structuring the way that it is now with referendum, lining up with the qualification period for our county, and
no, he objected to it
as well as
when you talked to him,
constitutional officers, and trying to keep things in sync. So we may not be in sync with other municipalities, but we'll be in sync with state, national, and county election cycles. My thoughts on it is it doesn't change any of our terms. I know that's been a big question that I've been asked. So everybody remains in serving the term that they're currently elected to. It does change the next term, and whether any of us choose to run for re-election, it would affect that. But only for that first cycle, and then after that, it would continue as normal as what we've experienced thus far. So I think it's an opportunity for voters to communicate what they want. Do they want the added convenience of being in a November election cycle? Or are they happy with the way things are?
The added
Personally,
convenience.
I'm okay with either way. But, I think it would be good to allow people the opportunity to voice their opinion one way or the other.
Josh, thank you for bringing this to us. I agree with that. I am an advocate for everyone participating in our elections. And it seems to me this makes sense, although I understand the concern that was expressed by Mr. Mark Anderson, that people just won't vote anyway. They'll come to the polls, they'll vote for who they want to vote for, and there will be a number of undervotes. I'm willing to believe, or I believe that even with a higher number of undervotes, our percentage of people who participate in electing local officials for our municipality will increase.
So I'm going to tell you what I think about Janice Lucas. I believe Josh Street and Jenna Halligus and Nevin Zimmerman are acting in bad faith. I believe Janice Lucas is acting in good faith. I think before she hears all of the reasons that really serious reasons, logistically and otherwise, that Supervisor of Elections Mark Anderson's about to walk up there and tell them. I hope, because Janice Lucas is the smartest one up there by far, most educated and the smartest. I think she's acting in good faith. I can understand people who say we want a bigger turnout. I don't agree with that. Okay. I quite frankly, if you don't even know the three branches of government, I'd rather you rock a boat than rock the vote. Okay. I'd rather you go fishing on that day. be honest with you. But I understand that a lot of other people don't agree. So this is probably a situation where Janice Lucas and I disagree on policy. And I'm okay with that. I don't have reasons to believe that she's being controlled by the St. Joe Company and William Harrison. So that's my thoughts on Janice Lucas here.
As a result of this. So I favor putting the referendum in front of the voters.
So when would the referendum, who would be voting on that if we don't have, because you're trying to do it before, not you, but what year does this, like, I guess I'm trying to figure out how this is. So would it be this August that you would have nominating people to run? Okay, so he said yes.
So
No,
if
she says nominating people to run. It would be this August that the referendum would appear.
April is when the referendum
Yeah.
appears, with the municipal election cycle.
So you're right.
Yeah,
But we don't, in the city of Panama City, we don't have any elections coming up.
we don't. So what it
So
would
we
mean.
would have other cities voting for us?
No,
Oh.
we would host our own election.
Hold on. No, Jenna, other cities wouldn't be voting for you guys. We got to catch Jenna up on this one here.
And we would host it just like the other cities are, how we would normally host an election. It would kind of be if people approved it, it would be our final municipal-only election.
Okay.
So that's what it would be.
And is there an option to do an ordinance instead?
Yes, there's a legal option. I mean,
Liar.
yes, you could just adopt an ordinance that changes.
Absolutely
I mean, if we're gonna be
violates
honest,
charter.
I think we probably, well, this doesn't really affect me as much, but I mean, I would
You're a
think.
voter.
I'm a voter. I would think that this would, it would be,
Can I just say something? When you are considering something as serious as this, you should probably take a little more time and think about it and understand it. And read the charter and listen closely to the supervisor of elections, Mark Anderson, who says this is insane. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't think Jenna knows about this.
more sensitive to those that are up here. Even though we'll finish the term out, that would require those who are interested in running again between,
June, you
yeah,
would
and,
declare.
right, they would have to be ready to campaign and go before August. So I've talked to several people about this, so, I mean, just randomly having conversations. I know Nevin mentioned this to me several months ago.
Whoa,
maybe
what?
even last year. I mean, well, obviously last year, but
So right about the time Doc Rohan upset Mayor Greg Brudnicki, Nevin Zimmerman's talking to them about, hey, you know what we can do since I don't work at Burke and Blue because I'm too dumb. Big boy Mike Burke, he makes me come sit here for 6.5 hours and do whatever he tells me to do.
you know what I mean. But I think that, I think people really favor that idea that.
No,
there's a lot
Jenna,
of
they
complaining
don't.
Of voter turnout, no matter who wins or loses, and so I can't imagine having
I mean, even if people in other cities get to vote for us, it might be a great thing.
more people input would be a bad thing.
I don't see how there's a negative to it. And, and to the point, we do have the legal right to do it by ordinance, but I think that
No, you
comes in
don't.
partnership with working with our super and saying like, okay, look, there may be other municipalities that choose to follow that.
So what Josh Street just said is it might behoove us to work with our super. He's talking about maybe we can work with Mark Anderson, supervisor of elections, and come up with a way. Dude, he's already told you this is a terrible idea, and he's about to do it again.
That could be the case if it's successful. So I think what we're doing is we're laying a floor plan, or we're laying a roadmap if others choose to follow or whether they don't,
Well, the only thing about the referendum that seems kind of odd is that there's nothing else to go in for. It's going to be even lower of a turnout, I would think.
That's the point, Jenna.
So I would think that we'd either want to just do an ordinance and get on this thing,
Illegal.
or we would do a referendum the year after.
I think I need to say something about this because
Here we go.
this is
Here we go. You ready for this? This is the highlight of the show. Mayor Doc Rohan. Yeah, I am so glad. Mayor Doc Rohan, you're right. It's time for you to say something about this. You're going to love this. It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan could make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at pcairrepair.com.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the ITEX trading community, where your ITEX dollars are welcome.
All right, now let's get some honesty here. Mayor Doc Rohan said, I think I need to say something about this idea of yours.
This is a solution in search of a problem. We talk in Panama City sometimes having trouble with roundabouts, and roundabouts are kind of easy compared to this. When I grew up, I always remember things happening in threes. So let's look at some threes. We've got an ethics complaint about me because I copied something from a web page. We've got an allegation that I grabbed an employee's butt. And now the third thing to try to get rid of me, let's face it, this is all about getting rid of me.
Ding, ding, ding.
This is to shorten my term. So it's an obvious attempt, and it makes me have to start campaigning. If I want to run for re-election, I got to start early, probably in spring or summer. So I see this as an outrageous attempt to avoid real issues. We've got a crazy fire tax that everybody hates. We're not doing anything about that. We got horrible roads. We've got a nutty sidewalk idea along Beach Drive where everybody on Beach Drive that lives there doesn't like it. We're also talking about rebuilding the city, the Panama City Marina. And I've been an outspoken proponent of the people doing it. I want the people to do it, but we've got a lot of people that want St. Joe to do it. So, get rid of me and then St. Joe can walk in the door. Another real obvious thing is, Brudnicki was the mayor for 12 years. Why didn't you do it when he was around?
Exactly.
Maybe you liked him. We also can look up, you can find any statistic you want about this thing, but I was amused about, this is going to enhance minority participation. Well, if we're going to enhance minority participation, why did this body up here elect a white guy to be city manager when we had a very well-qualified black person apply for the same job? So on a positive note, I would like to say that, Mr. Street, in 2.5 years, you've become a member of the cartel, and, you vote with the deep state. So congratulations.
Boom.
Thank you.
I would like to say that this wouldn't affect my term either. We would finish out our term. What I do understand, and that's what I was.
I mean, I think Jenna Halligus is the friendliest person on the council. But hasn't she established in the last few minutes that she has no clue about this? She thought other cities were gonna vote for her. Isn't everybody gonna vote for us? Is that what this is gonna do? And now she's going to talk as though she understands anything about this.
Making a point of is that those who want to run, the only people up for re-election during this time would be you, me, and Josh.
That's correct.
So Josh would have to campaign as well. But I'm not against, I just think in the long term it's good. I mean, we could put it on a referendum that's after, the following year or something. I mean, it doesn't have to be now. But that was even though I am going to retire, I still wanted to finish out my term. And so that's why it was important to me, because when elected, including yourself, the citizens expect us to follow through with our entire term. And I would want you to do the same thing. So I don't know if it matters how it could be done at a later date where that would be a hindrance to you two to have to run early. The other thing that I was going to say, though, for even me, though, that let's say there's two people that run for Ward 1, and so they can do that in August. then I'm still sitting here for 8 months before they come on. But I also see some benefits to that. I see working together with someone else. I see, I see a lot of benefit to that as well. But I just wanted to say that I think all in all, I think it's a good idea when we do it, if that's the sensitive part or the touchy part, can be, after this next term or however. I'm open to anything. I just think in the long term, it's a good idea.
I do want to
Thank you,
address-
Mr. Granger. I think you haven't commented yet. Do you have a comment?
I do. On the face of it, I'm in favor as long as everybody's terms are able to be served. Where I start to wane in support is in the second and third order effects that we are not aware of at this time.
That's right.
So a few that I can think of. When I was campaigning, right alongside Ms. Lucas down there, we were asked questions about specific things here in Panama City. And what could we do about them? What were our plans and that and so forth. And so it was a hyper local questions. And I appreciated that. And one of my fears moving forward with this is that, as we all know, national politics tends to take center stage during that time period. And I'm afraid that the hyper-local issues are going to be overshadowed by national issues that this board has nothing to do about. It was told to me when I first came on staff, first came into this position, that it's a tough position, but one of the benefits to this position was we didn't have to discuss things that divide families over Thanksgiving, right? We're not going to make decisions up here that are going to cause people to go home Christmas, Thanksgiving, those issues that divide families, we don't deal with. And I thank God for that. But if we were to move to this, we're going to get wrapped up in it. I can promise you that. It's going to happen. Not from this board, but from a campaign perspective. And it's going to turn into issues where people who are worried about national issues, and rightly so, are going to pin that on local candidates.
That's an excellent
you.
point. I hadn't thought about that. We would be like little peons, and the issues that we have are really, kind of to your point, I mean, they're big, but silly in the sense of national politics, and it could be that would be a very difficult time to run. I don't know.
How about vote no, Jenna? It's a terrible idea. And Mark Anderson will
not a
tell you
public
why in a
hearing.
minute.
We'll have public participation at the very end, so you can talk then.
I
So,
would like to address, because obviously you addressed me, Mr. Mayor. One thing.
Okay, here we go. Here comes the Grand Inquisitor, Josh Street, who always tries to talk real nice, and he'll throw in a little snark, and then he'll act like maybe you're just a little crazy. And the rest of us, however, this dude, man, if I had to rank, like on a scale of 1 to 10, the most dishonest politicians, you've got Jesse Nelson at the top. He's 1A. And then 1B is Josh Street, and 1BC is Adrian Welly. I mean, we've got some super dishonest people, but Street is right up there. My God. But you see the crowd he runs around over in St. Andrews eating lunch with dumpster diver Arthur Cullen, the campaign manager, who, by the way, is also the campaign manager for Jesse Nelson. Coincidence? All right, Josh, go ahead and highbrow with your religion on your sleeve. Set the mayor straight that you just care about the people.
I would just say is look, not everything is about you, and the
Snark.
motivation of this is not about you. In spite of what you think, it's not. If being part of the deep state is trying to increase voter turnout, then I guess that's a pretty large conspiracy. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just trying to say, look, we've got an opportunity to increase voter turnout. This is one of the things that is proven around the country to be successful. And if the voters so choose to do it, or how this elected body chooses to do it, I'm completely open to. But I would like to see more people involved in our municipal elections, and because I think it's important. All politics is local, and the the foundation of American democracy starts with our elected commissioners, our elected councilmen from around the country. And so that's what I believe. And so I understand that you believe there's something else behind it, and that's okay. I mean, you have a right to your opinion.
Can you imagine? This guy's insufferable. He knows everything. You know nothing. His motives are noble. Your motives are whatever they are. I just care about the people, and I don't care which way we do it.
As I read Mark Anderson's letter, I would have to say that he leans more on my side, which would be not changing it, than on your side of changing it. So, as you know, everybody can look at statistics and they can come up with their own answer, and often the answers are not the same. So I guess what we've done here is we've talked about it, and I don't know if we need to move. If anybody wants to do anything different right now, I guess it would be time for them to do something.
I think we're just talking about it.
Okay.
I will say in your defense, Josh, we talked about this before this last April. I've been talking to Nevin.
Really? Wait, what did she just say? Put a pin in this. This is dead. This is dead. Oh my God. At 2:41, at the 2:41:59 mark. This is dead. Jenna just said, oh my God, Jenna, you just admitted to a sunshine law violation. I need to hear this again before I say this. I think she said, Josh, you and I talked about this before April, which I don't believe, because that would mean it had nothing to do with the mayor. It has everything to do with the mayor. But you two better never have talked about this, because that's a sunshine law violation. It's something you're up to vote on. Now, damn it, I can make it go back a little bit, but I can't be sure exactly how far it'll go back. But I'm going to try to hear this again. Let's give this a shot. I want to make sure I heard this right.
About this before any of this latest election with you guys. But it does make me feel like, with the mayor saying that and feeling that way, that if we are going to move forward, a referendum probably is that way, that if we are going to move forward, I think we're just talking about
Okay, here we go.
I will say in your defense, Josh, we talked about this before this last April. I've been talking to Nevin about this before any of this latest election.
That's a sunshine law violation. Josh, you and I talked about this before April. You can't be discussing business. You guys certainly can't vote on it. I missed that until today. In the comments, are you reading this the way I'm reading it? And I certainly do not want you talk about. These are the same people who are accusing the mayor of ethics violations. I cannot believe what I just heard. I missed that. I don't mean to be, baby, but, you know. Oh, my. At the next meeting, will there be an ethics violation suggested? Will you hire the fakakta lawyer to come in and analyze what you just said, Jenna? She just implicated Josh in a crime, and she just admitted to a crime. I'm blown away. I will be sending this clip to all of them and asking if that's a sunshine law violation. I will be sending this clip to the Attorney General of the state of Florida and to their special counsel on open government and sunshine law. Her name is Patricia Gleason. Patricia Gleason is the top attorney at the Attorney General's office for the state of Florida that deals with this issue. I want to know, is that a sunshine law violation? You can't vote on it now. This issue's dead. Over. Done.
Election with you guys. But it does make me feel like, with the mayor saying that and feeling that way, that if we are going to move forward, a referendum probably is the way to go, so that it's not our decision, and it would be the people, the people's decision, if that's what this board desires, because that is the last thing. I believe that the mayor was elected because the people wanted him to be, and I want to see him finish his term at the very least, and whatever he decides to do after that is up to him. So whatever keeps it wide open and transparent is fine with me.
Thank you. I hear somebody, is that,
Yes, that was me talking.
oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to point out that Mr. Anderson is here in case anybody wanted to hear. He might be willing to talk on this issue.
Where is he? I didn't see him. Oh, hey, Mark, would you be willing to talk? Can you muddy the water a little more?
So here comes the supervisor of elections. What do you
Thanks for
think?
coming. I didn't see you back there.
Say roll tide. Is that what he said? Say roll tide?
Thanks for coming all
Mark
this way.
Anderson, Bay County Supervisor of Elections.
Thank you for walking over.
I understand where Josh is coming from, voter turnout. We all want voter turnout, but I can give you examples of the pig amendment. I can give you examples of volume of voters that more turnout doesn't always give you the answer that you think you're going to get. So the more you muddy the water on the ballot, the less clarity you have on the ballot. Let's give you an example. If you've got, let's say, 5 charter amendments or 4 questions that you want, and then you have the candidates, and then you have the state, and then you have all the other pieces. Now you're Miami-Dade. Congratulations. You're going to get 2- and 3-sheet ballots. Apathy is going to occur. You're going to have higher errors on the ballot. That's a proven. All the studies, and I agree with Josh, yeah, it will increase turnout, but it'll also increase everything else that goes with it. There will be envelopes that'll get returned with only 1 ballot in it and not the second sheet. There will be, and I can go on. So, and again, I want to get all the facts out so when you make a decision, that you're making a real good one. You're also making the decision to take the judge, the county commissioner, and myself and make us do your election. Your canvassing board will no longer be your municipal clerk.
Which, by the way, is what the city charter says it has to be. So when they sit there, when you've got we got to think of a nickname for Nevin Zimmerman, the city attorney that does whatever big boy Mike tells him to do, Mike Burke. The city charter lays this out. You can't just pass an ordinance to change it. What the hell's wrong with you?
It'll, by statute, the county now takes over your city elections. So if you have a recount, the judge, the county commissioner, and myself are the ones that are going to do your city recount, and your administration will not be involved in it. You'll pay for it, but you won't be involved in it. So there's this, it's a little bit of a mix-up between home rule and you want this, but you're still home rule, and you're going to give up some things to get other things. So do all the homework. And I watch your meetings. You guys do a lot of homework. You do a lot of digging and do a lot of talking. I'm good at talking. I can talk all day about elections.
Please don't.
There's positives and negatives. You got enclaves everywhere. You got people that aren't annexed in cities. I have all those issues with all the other cities. I don't even want to bring up the wards because one ward doesn't even touch the same ward. So you got a lot of things that if we jump into this, that I'm going to have to do a little bit of, hey, you got to straighten this out because it can't work. I can't make a precinct boundary look like your city.
See?
Because no one would understand it.
Exactly.
And it just would get very complicated. So I'm open to any questions. I'm all about voter turnout too. Maybe you wait a while, the next election, you do 12 days of early voting instead of 5. I can't tell you that anybody's ever come to me and say, hey, when would the lowest voter turnout be so we can do a special referendum election? I'm not lying. I've heard that many times in the 23 years I've been in office.
Panama City Beach,
That's
Mark
not
Sheldon.
the goal, and that angers me, to be honest with you.
That should.
So and I'm not saying Panama City's done it. I'm just saying that there's times that people want high voter turnout, and then unfortunately, because they want to make sure people understand what's on the ballot. And I think, me personally, if you don't know what you're voting for or who you're voting for, should you be voting
Nope.
and making that decision? Those are topics that are always hugely questioned whenever you do an election. So I've been here 23 years. I've seen a lot. You should have been here when I started. Nevins, Nevins remembered all my battles. I've been through all kinds of different things. But I know at least getting all the cities on one timeline, same qualifying time, same understanding, same issues. So if you move to this, you basically are letting go of your election because your qualifying time will be when the state and federal. So if any of those laws change, you change. So all these things are commingled. So think about it real hard before you start putting the question out or going down that path, because it's really got to be a partnership in the end of this whole story. Is, you know, how happy is the judge going to be that they're still in there doing a recount for a city? Because I already know in South Florida, there are places that have that, and they're not very happy about it. Okaloosa did this, and the supervisor over there, Joshua and I talked about this, that it became an issue of, okay, so when you want a special election, you're on your own because you forced yourself on my November ballot. You can say, I have to do the August and November, but you can't make me do any other elections. And I'm not saying I would act that way, but let's make sure we're talking, agreeing with that kind of theory, because that's a much better way to work things out. So
At the
that's
very
all I got
least,
to say.
it'll take time to develop how it would look and all, at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions with our current schedule in increasing voter turnout?
Well, increasing voter turnout, I mean, if you do 12 days of early voting, you'll increase voter turnout, maybe. In my letter, I said voter turnout's based on anger, emotion, specific topics, personal issues. Look at the voter turnout on different issues at the federal level, on wherever they focus and wherever they go. That all will be in effect on your ballot when that all comes in, and you will get asked federal and state questions on what your opinion is, so your elections become more complicated. They really do. Nobody says that, but again, is the voter turnout what you want based on how you're going to get there?
Well, maybe we should at least, I would love to do more early voting. I mean, it's better than nothing, to see if it matters.
I mean,
You can't vote on it
voter
now.
access is my job. Voter
Exactly.
turnout, if I affect voter turnout, I've done my job inappropriately. Does everybody understand
It's a
that?
great point.
And I will go on the record, any supervisor of elections said they personally increased voter turnout, they were involved in areas they didn't belong. That's my personal opinion. So,
What would those areas be?
excuse me?
What would those areas be that they shouldn't be involved in if they are affecting voter turnout?
Driving vehicles into a neighborhood to promote one neighborhood over another neighborhood on VBM or this or any of the other actions, or
by
promoting
mail.
more this direction than this direction, or saying, oh, I like this candidate better than this candidate, but not publicly saying, there's just places you don't belong. That's why I don't get involved in the election itself, because if you do, you can't serve, you shouldn't serve on the canvassing board. So there's just a lot of dynamics when you jump in with the state and the federal and the county on that ballot, and now it's you. Your next forums are going to be different.
So that point I understand. And that's something very seriously to consider, being caught up in the partisan politics of a November election.
Yeah. And when Evans and I were doing all the other cities, it was so hard to get everybody all in one, and that wasn't because I wanted to make everybody not get along. Is what I did want was to be able to say, here's the sample ballot for everybody, and out it goes. Because everybody's got enclaves in their cities And when you put a precinct boundary in there, that means this person that is your neighbor gets a different ballot from you because they didn't get annexed into the city. Like Kings Point area, I know because I used to live there. It's not in Panama City. It's surrounded by Panama City, but it's not in Panama City. So they'd get a different ballot than the other people that are right on the edge. And it's going to be at the same precinct, so I'm handing out different ballot styles on election day to different voters with different things on their ballots. And election day is really not a good day to do that kind of stuff.
All right. So does it sound like the supervisor of elections is opposed to this, or he just had some concerns? Now, that's not enough, because the deceitful Grand Inquisitor, Josh Street, everything he just heard is bouncing right off of him. And he's about to ask one of the stupidest ass questions you ever heard in your life. Watch this.
Early voting, but election day is a whole nother dynamic. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to ask, or
Come on, Josh Street, let's hear your brilliant question here.
Well, thank you, Mark. You have been around a long time. You're a real election nerd, but we can really ask you the questions, and you always shoot straight. So I really appreciate that. And I hear you're going to retire here pretty soon. So
you'll know when I don't qualify. That's what I say right now.
you're not going to confess here today, eh?
Mark,
So,
I do have
and
one
Josh
question.
and I had some deep discussions and very good discussions about all of it, because I understand where his heart is, to the extent on voter turnout. But yeah, good decisions and voter turnout, they got to go hand in hand. So you got to get people educated. Good candidates who work hard get the votes. That's the way it works.
Mark, one question, because you and I talked extensively about this, and, I think this is where we both kind of landed. If the voters choose to go in some direction, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's the choice the city can make. Myself, it definitely complicates my world.
Now, you got to really listen to what Supervisor of Election Anderson is going to say here. He's going to give an example of a supervisor of elections in another place who said, I'm not going to put the referendum on the ballot, up yours. And then he says, I'm not saying I'll do that to you guys, but let's play nice here, okay? Watch.
As far as the supervisor, I would then encourage that if a decision does go that direction, then there are some things I would put on the city to be done properly, so that other issues could be done properly. Am I making sense with all these things?
Oh, yeah.
Because the way you currently set, it's not friendly. Miami-Dade doesn't have enclaves where the things are all over. They have set boundaries, and I just use them as an example because they are huge. And they've got very specific lines, but they got lots and lots of different cities, that Jan knows. So it's not easy to do that here right now. It might be 5 years from now, but there's a lot of little, they're not. That's why when I do the municipal elections, everybody's got to go vote on their municipal instead of, in the beginning when I came here, some actually would move from this side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge during election time.
Change their address, yes.
Change
I
their address.
remember
To
those
run
days.
for
Physically
office.
live in an apartment that was in their business, anyways.
Right.
But, everyone understands why somebody wants to be involved making decisions. So,
Very good. Well, thank you, Mark. Does anybody else have any?
I think the only thing to the point, Mark, is if we're going to put it on an April ballot, we have to make the decision by,
yeah, you're qualifying as in early February here. The qualifying period for everyone else, everything would have to be done.
You can't vote on it now, Josh. You and Jenna already talked about
This is a
it.
very complicated year with the PPP.
It's dead.
And the other things coming in. And that timeline, we know we can manage those things. And keep in mind, too, if the voters make that decision to go down that path, now you get, if you have a special election or something else or all the other issues, just know where you're headed. That's.
I believe, Mr. Anderson, February 9th at noon
I
is
think is the last day
the
of qualifying.
deadline for having a ballot question.
So they gotta have votes and
Thank you.
2 votes.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate you coming over.
Good luck.
Thanks, Mark.
And have it in February 9th. You can't vote on it now,
Concludes my
Josh.
report. I don't know if it concludes the discussion.
Well, I think from this point, it's just really deciding whether or not we want to go down the referendum route or not.
Gee,
I mean,
you can't
we don't have
vote
to
on
make
it
the
now.
Decision today, but it sounds like we need to make the decision by.
It sounds like you need to get a lawyer.
We've got a meeting before that 9th, do we? So it would be next meeting that we'd have to make the decision.
All right, we could move on to unfinished business. Is that you, Brandy?
Yes.
All right, that's how it ended.
Our
Nothing happened,
section.
and they got away lucky. Boy, if they'd have voted on that, that would have sealed their fate. Yeah, I'll be making some phone calls tomorrow. I need to point that out. An admitted sunshine violation from the commissioners who care so much about ethics. You know, they've got this obsession with ethics now. We need the ethics board just to find out if anybody did anything wrong. I agree. The ethics board needs to find out if they did anything wrong. Speaking of elections, you've got, I heard that Mayor Mark Sheldon has like, God, how much the Mayor Mark Sheldon's running again, right? You can vote his ass out in April. But evidently he's got $90,000, and it usually only takes less than that, already in the bank. People, the local cartel has dumped $90,000 in his bank. He doesn't have to raise money. Neither does Josh. Oh, there's a meeting tomorrow in Panama City Beach, and I got a question for him. Mayor Mark Sheldon. Mr. Conflict of Interest. Mayor Mark Sheldon is pushing for a $10 million pedestrian bridge to connect Frank Brown Park to Aaron Besant Park. It's great for music festivals. It's the city's #1 priority this year. They've got a bunch of projects, and they plan to spend $236 million. 2 years ago, the budget for the city was only $42 million. That's why locals are paying so much more in assessments to the city. Mayor Sheldon says it's worth it. After all, he owns Gulf Coast Jam. The city's #1 priority will benefit his music festivals. He wants more state and federal grant money as a slush fund.
These are significant projects that will make a huge difference in our community. The first is to pursue any available state aid for the planning, design, and environmental studies related to a pedestrian bridge connecting Aaron Besant Park and Frank Brown Park. This walkover would link these 2 public parks and provide a safer avenue for our residents.
Sure, it's just about safety. It's just about safety. It's just about making sure there's more democracy. Right, Josh? Right, Mark? Unbelievable. I want to thank those of you who are patrons for supporting my efforts. It's like throwing a tip in the tip jar. Not the cookie jar, the tip jar. You can support my efforts for as little as $5 a month at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. Best money you can spend on the internet. Is this not worth it? $5 a month to get this information? You're not going to get it anywhere else. It's anonymous, and you can quit at any time, and it's easy. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. Also, of course, I want to thank the Unknown Patriot for your support. I appreciate it as always. And I will be back soon with more information. Maybe not tomorrow. If there's a meeting tomorrow in Panama City Beach, I'm going to go to that.